Hi guys. Welcome to our online version of class for ELED 459. Obviously, the weather got in the way of us meeting face-to-face today, so what we're going to do is replicate what we were going to do in class today as closely as possible in an online and independent format. So with that, what I want to share with you first is I'm going to give you this video using a tool called Edpuzzle. Probably many of you have used this tool before, but before you continue watching this video, make sure that you join our class Edpuzzle account, and there are directions for how to do that. So that way you get credit for watching the video, and you can answer any questions that are embedded into the video. So like I said, with that, I'm going to go and just use the PowerPoint that we were going to go through today in class, and we're going to talk about the activity that we were going to do, and then you're going to do that activity independently and submit it into a new Dropbox, and I'll show you where all of that is. So over the last couple of days since last class, you guys read a chapter in our Daily 5 book called The Foundations of Daily 5. And so our learning target for our class today was to understand those foundations of Daily 5. Now, what we've talked about is that it's important to be able to assess our students and use those assessments to differentiate instruction, to provide support, and have organized data. But for any of that to work, we need to establish some foundational components in our classroom that enable Daily 5 and the CAFE assessment system to function. And the authors of our textbook state that those foundations are trust and respect, community, choice, accountability, brain research, and transitions as brain and body breaks. And then also learning independence. Our class time on Friday is going to focus on learning independence. So today we're going to look at the other foundations of Daily 5 and just analyze those a little bit more deeply than you did in the stop and jot that you did for your assignment for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you my insight on each of these foundations, and then I'm going to explain the assignment, and then you can get started on your work time. So first of all, in order for Daily 5 and CAFE assessment system to work, you need to establish trust and respect in your classroom. A quote from the text that really stood out to me as important was, "They are not being mischievous or malevolent. They are needing instructional support and time to build stamina." This quote really reminded me of something that came out of a book study that I was doing when I was a middle school teacher. And one of the comments that somebody made based on what they read in the book was, as teachers, we need to take student resistance seriously. What they're doing is they are sharing with us that they are not having their learning needs met. So if they're being mischievous or malevolent, it's not because they haven't earned our respect or are not earning our respect or not earning our trust. It's because they're trying to tell us something, and that's just how kids know to tell us. So in order to establish trust and respect in your classroom, you first of all need to know that they're giving you a message if children are being mischievous, and instead of getting after them, you need to respond to them in a more constructive way, provide them whatever instructional support or time that they need. They also need to build stamina. So if students are getting off task, then that might be time for you to give them some sort of a transition, brain or body break, or another little mini lesson. So trust that your students are going to do their work, and if they're not, respect them enough to give them this support and time that they need to be successful. So that's the first component of successfully implementing Daily 5 and CAFE. Community is the next component, and a quote from the text was, "A sense of community empowers students to hold others accountable for behaviors, learning, respect, and kindness." And this really boils down to you getting to know your students and your students getting to know each other, and then establishing this community where everybody feels comfortable doing the work of learning and working with each other and communicating their needs. So, community is key if you want to successfully implement Daily 5 and the CAFE assessment system. Choice. We have heard this over and over again as we've gone through different topics throughout the beginning of our semester here. We read about it in the article that I posted on Twitter. We've read about it in Daily 5. We've read about it in CAFE. But the thing is, and what we've said is, when there is choice in what we do, and specifically choice in what we provide our students to do, first of all, you're communicating that you trust and respect your students. And you know that they're going to make good choices, and you're also going to empower them to be advocates for their own learning. So if you're giving students worksheets or some sort of a busy work kind of task for them to do, while you work with students one-on-one, more than likely you're communicating that you have low trust and respect for students, and you're going to see a lot of students that are kind of just going through the motions. And as a teacher, you're going to spend a lot of time creating work for students and correcting your students' work. If you look at this continuum from seat work to Daily 5, what it's saying is the more choice that you give your students within certain parameters, you of course have to provide certain parameters of what quality reading and writing time looks like, the more engaged your students are going to be in the work of becoming better readers and writers. Accountability. And all of these foundations relate to one another. If you're giving your students choice, then they're accountable for their own learning. If they're accountable for their own learning, then you need to be supporting them with that. So over time, as you give children more choice, they take ownership of their own learning, and they can see what their strengths and their needs are. They can work with you to set goals and then move forward on those goals. So accountability for your students is key, and then accountability for yourself. If you're noticing that students are having difficulty and are not being successful, then as their teacher, you need to hold yourself accountable for going back and fixing whatever foundation is missing out of Daily 5. And so all of this ties into brain research and what we know about how people learn. I've told you over and over and over again, whomever is doing the reading, writing, and talking is doing the learning. So as a teacher, you want to minimize your talk time and maximize your students' time to practice the essential skills of good readers and writers. So 20% of time in your classroom should be directed instruction or teacher talk time, and 80% of the time in your classroom should be time for students to practice those essential skills that we want them to master to be good readers and writers. And then last but not least, we've talked about structure a lot and transitions a lot, and students need time to build their stamina for being independent readers and writers. So build in transitions to your Daily 5 workshop and CAFE time, and those transitions can be used to provide brain and body breaks and just to refocus. This is similar to something that I've heard called catch and release. You notice that one of your students or two of your students are starting to lose focus. That is a good time to provide a transition or a brain and body break. Maybe you give another short mini lesson so that your students can take a little brain break, focus in on something new, and then refrain and go into whatever task they need to do next. So that is the last Daily 5. So what I want you to do in order to think about these components a little bit more deeply is you're going to do something called creating a circle map. And when you go into D2L, you'll see that you have been assigned one component of Daily 5, and you are going to create a circle map about that component. You're going to turn that circle map into the Dropbox. This is actually the task that we were going to do in class today. Since we did not have class face-to-face today, I'm going to ask that you do it on your own time and then have it completed by class on Friday, and we will share our thoughts on in class on Friday. So you might be asking, Katie, what the heck is a circle map? I've never heard of that before. So let me tell you what a circle map is. Essentially, a circle map is a thinking tool, is what it is. The purpose of it is to define, generate ideas, examine how you view something, or brainstorm about something. So in this case, you are going to define the foundation of Daily 5 that you were assigned to. You're going to start brainstorming some ideas of how you could, I guess, get that foundation going in your future classroom. You can post questions on, about that foundation and how you might implement that, or you can share how you view it. But the big idea is to really brainstorm. Okay, this is a foundation. How do I build that foundation in my future classroom? So if you look at this box up top here, it says thinking process. A circle map is used to help us define something and show our understanding of a topic. We use this to generate ideas, assess what we already know, and what we have learned. Around the outside of the box is called the frame of reference. Here we can write how we know what we know. So you're going to essentially list all of the places that you've gathered information about that particular foundation. Of course, that's going to be the Daily 5 textbook. It might also be a classroom that you have visited that has been implementing Daily 5, so you could list that classroom or that classroom teacher. You may also decide to go out and look for some new resources about whatever your assigned foundation is. So you could list websites that share how you know what you know. So that's going to go around the outside or the border. Then it goes on to say, it also allows us to consider our point of view because our different experiences cause us to see the world differently from one another. Would an adult define a good TV show the same way as a child would? So you can also insert your own point of view into this concept map. So in the center of your map, which in your case you're going to use a Google drawing to create it, that's where you're going to put your topics. So whatever your foundation is, then you draw a circle around it. Then you brainstorm all of your thoughts and put those outside of the kind of bullseye internal circle. You can go out and find pictures that relate to it. You can find web resources. You can make lists, but you're essentially going to explain what you know and make connections to your future classroom in that next layer. And then, like I said, around the outside, that's where you list all of your references. So here is a start to one. I have this little border going around the outside, and that's where eventually I'm going to put my references. I have community in the middle because that's the foundation, and I'm going to start to put images, words, shapes, lists, statements, quotes in this white space to share what I know about community as a foundation of Daily 5. It's just essentially a way to organize our ideas. So let me just, before I talk about the reading assignment for Friday, I want to show you some things in our Dropbox or in our D2L class. So if you go into content, you are going to see this new Dropbox, Foundation of Daily 5 Circle Map. You will also see your circle map assignment topic. So this is who's assigned to trust and respect, community, etc. There is also the directions for how to create a circle map. And I want you to create your circle map using Google Drawings. So finally, there is a video tutorial, Google Drawings. And I'm just going to show you real quick. Google, you can go into your Drive, select New Google Drawing, and you'll use this tool to create your circle map. So maybe I want a blue background. Maybe I'm going to put my shape in the middle where I'm going to put my foundation. And then once I'm done, I'm going to title it. I'm going to download as a JPEG, and that JPEG could then be put into the Dropbox. So that needs to be completed before you get to class on Friday. And then we will be using that circle map that you create in class on Friday. And then finally, in addition to creating that circle map, I would like you to read Chapter 3 in Daily 5, which is helping your students to develop independence in the classroom. So, and that's another thing that we will be using in class on Friday. There's not a stop and jot or anything that you are going to need to complete from the reading. I just want you to read Chapter 3 in Daily 5. So your tasks before you get to class on Friday: circle map. 2, read Chapter 3 in Daily 5. I hope you all are warm and having a great snow day, and I will see you Friday.